Hello and welcome to the Raisina Live. Here we will be speaking about commodities in the fourth industrial revolution. I'm Mihir Sharma, a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, and with me today is Mr. Rajesh Shah, who's been observing this sector with great interest for some time. Let me just put this in context for you very briefly. You will hear a lot, and you will have heard a lot over the past years, including at Raisina, about preparing India for the fourth industrial revolution. And usually when we talk about this, we mean, you know, the new economy. We talk about rare earths that go into our mobile phones. We talk about whether data flows across boundaries. But some of us are concerned that in this conversation, a large part of what we will continue to need in the economy going forward is not being talked about. All the things that go into the building blocks of a regular economy, steel, coal, energy, these are things that we need to talk about still. And the question is, are we doing enough to increase our capacity at those? Mr. Shah, are we doing enough?
I don't think so. When at a conference like this, we're normally discussing security issues, we're discussing climate change and so on, and these are vital. But if we're talking about security, I think we also need to look at what I would call as economic security. Now today, yes, our growth rate has taken sort of a little bit of a downturn for the moment, but if we go by our normal fundamentals as expected, this country has to grow and grow rapidly, and it's going to need everything that is required in terms of preparing for infrastructure and for consumption by our people. Now that's economic growth, and if that is constrained in any manner, it's actually going to hold us back.
So for example, you would say perhaps that the iron and steel sector, we need steel for construction, we need steel for all forms of industry. Currently, it's not a constraint on our low growths because we are not growing as fast as we should. But when we get back to our historically high levels of growth, you feel that we will begin to see a bit of a pinch.
Well, I'll just give it in a very quick background. The world manufactures and consumes about 2 billion tons of steel. 50% of that is only in one country, and that's China. China is the world's biggest producer. Now we say we're the second biggest producer, but we make about 120 million tons. Most of the other big countries, such as the European countries or the United States or even Japan and South Korea, are actually reducing their production. So if we need from 120 million tons to, let's say, just to get to the world average in about 10 years, world average of today in terms of consumption of steel per capita, we would need to make maybe 200 million tons more. And that's more than $250 billion worth of investment. It requires raw materials. That's in about 7, 8, 10 years time. Where do we have the land? Where do we have the water that's needed for that? Where do we have the raw materials that are required? And we don't have it, we have to import from China. So finally, it's only one country that will control our actual economic growth, which is not related to the let's say the fourth industrial revolution of just services and IT and data.
So I think that what you are saying here, and if I may paraphrase, is that it is a matter of important national security that we will be subject to decisions made elsewhere about such an important and essential commodity.
That's right. See, there are many other commodities which are important and likely to remain important, whether it's coal or it's oil, it's natural gas and so on, which also we import. But those are available across a whole spectrum of countries, very widely distributed around the world, and we can do it with good foreign relations. Here, unless, if for any reason, our relationship with this one major country, our neighbor, deteriorates, this commodity will be in some trouble. Now this may seem very counterintuitive when the industry is down today, but that's how I see it. So what should we do? I think that should be the more important question once we address this. So right now, some of the companies which were in trouble, they have been bought over through the NCLT. But we have 6, 7 major government companies which have huge resources already allotted to them of land, of water, of infrastructure, possibly for mining, and they are not even achieving 15-20% of what they should be doing or what they could do. So the idea should be that protecting the jobs of these persons, this is my idea and which I want to put forward for debate, that all of these should really be fully privatized, and we as a government and as people should go out and woo big companies in Japan, in Korea, in Russia, in China is also, and say please come invest over here, take the capacity up 4, 5, 6 times, and they would be the only ones who could bring in the funding as well. So this is the idea.
I think that you make a very good point here, because after all these were companies that were set up in the 1950s when in some senses land was considered less scarce, water was freely available. We now face a situation, and they continue to have the expansive scale of the public sector in the early years of independence. They haven't really been pushed by market forces or otherwise into improving productivity, into greater efficiency. You're saying that these are in some sense wasted resources. These are resources that should be better deployed, and it's the private sector that can do it. And it is now not just an economic necessity, but it is soon likely to become a security and strategic necessity as well. But I will ask, people have tried to enter this business before, foreign investors. You said we should go to Japan and to Korea. Many years ago, for example, the Korean steel major POSCO made a large investment in India. But a lot of people have been quite disheartened. How do you feel we should be able to sell this to them?
I agree. We will have a hard sell, and we will also have a hard sell with the unions and the employees. But as long as we are able to assure them that their jobs won't be lost, I think a big company that was there faced the issues: how much land can they get, and they require huge amount of land. What sort of mining facilities can they get? Will they get all the forest permits? And now that's my key point. We have natural resources, but where are these natural resources as of today? They're all under forests. They're where tribals are living over there, and it's increasingly difficult to sort of take care of this. Our Supreme Court has intervened on multiple occasions, shutting down mining, or even shutting down a smelter at Tuticorin, for example. So if we'll have to find solutions which are technology based, solutions which are utilizing all the resources we have. Otherwise, we may face a kind of a situation 4, 5, 6 years down when we don't have capacity, and we'll always be going begging to China, saying, please, can you sort of give us something, because Japan or the EU or the United States will say, we don't make all this stuff anymore.
It's interesting that the government has managed to move forward with Coal India, and perhaps, and I think we should let this be the last thought, perhaps it is because we knew that coal was production was becoming a constraint. What you are saying here is that although steel production is not a constraint at the moment, we need to anticipate when it will be.
Absolutely. I think we should do it because we will be needing it very soon, and to add capacity fresh or even on an existing plant can take 4 years or 5 years, and it needs a lot of planning and a lot of money. So we don't start planning for it now. It's going to be the case here. It's also going to be the case in terms of aluminum, where privatization, say, of a company like Balco has added enormously to our capacity. Yeah. So we need to move and think about these as well as we think of bigger security issues.
And that's what the Raisina Dialogue is essentially about. It's about trying to get ahead of the issues of the future. This is one such issue. We're not talking about what we need to do to improve iron and steel capacity right now, because it doesn't seem that urgent. But in fact, in the next 5 to 7 years, there's a good chance that it will become a major economic and indeed security issue. Thank you, Mr. Shah.
Thank you. Thank you.